Hey guys, thanks for checking out Quick Sessions Podcast. My name's Garrett Terrio, coming to you from Houston, Texas. And today I'm going to be talking about velocity-based training. And what that is a way of lifting to where you are adjusting the weight so that you are maintaining a certain level of acceleration through the concentric phase of your lift. That's the most elegant way I can describe it. The goal for it is explosiveness. And explosiveness is something that I believe anyway, if you don't have it, there's no way you're ever going to attain your max, the maximum weight you can do on any given lift. So for instance, people want to come in and max out on bench press and they do it textbook, go down, chest up, blah, blah, blah. But if there's no explosion, I call it the next gear. There's no explosion to it. They're always going to be limited by that lack of oomph coming off the chest, right? And some people rely too much on it also, but I'll actually take that as far as maxing out goes over the person that just doesn't use it. Now, when I say that, doesn't use it, a lot of people don't know what it even is. I was fortunate enough to play sports and lift weights my whole life, so I know what real explosion is. I know how to generate it. But if you didn't grow up playing a sport like, especially football, but even basketball, but most sports, just about every sport, there's no sport where you don't have to be explosive that I can think of. So one part of velocity-based training is to try to help manufacture explosion. And it's kind of taking a step back sometimes, because once you reach a certain level of weight that you can move, going backwards isn't desirable. No one wants to do 40% of their max on something. They'll feel like they're wasting their time. But when you introduce something like velocity-based training, not only does it make the workout more challenging, it helps as far as figuring out how to generate the explosion. So I'm going to break down kind of the 3 reasons I think it's important, and I practice it myself, so I can speak from a little experience on this. Well, a lot of it. But the first one is just increased explosion, right? That I've just been rambling on about, because increased explosion does lead to increased power. And we can go to high school physics, right? Everybody knows the force equals mass times acceleration, and the more force you produce, the more work you can do. You can generate more power during that work. I can't remember all the equations, but it's something like that. And that first, force equals mass times acceleration, that's pretty simple, right? You have 2 variables. You can either add more weight, the mass, but that is the more limited of the 2 variables. Well, the only other one is acceleration. So if you can increase the speed with the same mass, then bam, you got more force. More work can eventually be performed. And the more force you have, like I said, during the work leads to power. More power equals more weight, getting stronger. Pretty simple, right? The second one is muscular conditioning. So, and I can harp on this one a little bit, but fatigue during weightlifting is normal, right? We all get tired lifting weights in the gym. But if you're a veteran enough, you understand the cardio fatigue and weightlifting fatigue are very, very different. Also, I would want to point out, if you're this person, or you've worked out with someone, you have 2 types of lifters when it comes to failing out, to getting fatigued. You have the guy that, on rep 7, it goes up slow. And rep 8, he gets it off his chest and it's going a little bit. He fights for a few seconds, maybe even longer. And then eventually comes down. You got to spot him to pick it up. Or you have the people that go down, hit the chest, and it just doesn't leave their chest. That is the person who is lacking the explosiveness that is necessary to get that extra rep. There's very few times in my life, and I would consider myself a very explosive lifter. There's very few times in my life where a bar has just not left my chest. Because the explosion is the transition from eccentric to concentric contractions, especially on bench press, is such an explosive movement when I lift that the sheer energy transfer is going to get the bar up. So that's kind of like a telltale sign on how someone fatigues and if they need this velocity-based training to help improve that transition. And with that, you're also going to be able to condition your muscles a little better to be able to sustain that weight and create more energy through all the different arm angles and shoulder positions that are necessary to perform these big lifts. So you have better endurance in the weight room. That means you're going to get more reps, i.e. get a little stronger. So like I said kind of earlier, none of this is rocket science. It all very much makes sense when you put it out there. But I guess having a title makes this more of a talking point, right? And the last one, number 3, and this is not exactly a get better at lifting. Well, a little bit. I'll talk my way into it through this. But essentially you can find out what your max weight is on any certain lift without loading up the bar. And the reason this is good is just because of the injury risk with it. I don't know about who's listening, but I'm 31 now. There's not much interest I have in just maxing out, seeing what I can do for one rep. Not that I won't ever do it, or I'll get real low and end up stumbling on a one rep set, something like that. And I'm not against finding it out the old fashioned way. But for a lot of people, number one, doing the one rep max, let's say you get 330. It's probably on your 6th set, 7th set. Hopefully you were feeling really good that day. Hopefully everything warmed up right. It's a tough thing, even when you get the one rep max, to know, is it actually 5 pounds more? But at this point, I'm so fatigued. Then you got to wait a week, try it again. Hopefully you're feeling just as good. So it can become a real big drawn out process to find out a true max. And like I said, finding out the one rep max isn't really the most important part. The important part of knowing your one rep max is so that you know what to do on your sets of 10, 12, 6, 8, whatever. So you can have the percentages, right? The rule of thumb is 75% of your max is what you do for 10. So instead of playing any guesswork and risking really wasting a whole workout, you can do this velocity-based training with a bar tracker, stopwatch, some timing method to see at what point you will not be able to generate any acceleration, right? You'll graph it out, go with, 40% of your max, 50, 60, 70, and you can graph it out and come up to a pretty close number that is your true max. Because whenever you can't accelerate is when, okay, that's it. And then you can adjust your workout. So there's no guesswork. You have a number, you're going to go in, you're going to do your 4 sets of 10. So that's the convenient part of it that I use as a trainer, is so I don't have to guess at people's weight. I can write stuff down, I can remember who's who, but it's just so different, with people taking a 3-week vacation, people taking, and you'll kind of forget exactly what they were lifting. And when you have enough clients, it's hard to keep track of everybody's max unless you're writing it down. And if you have a full clientele, just writing everything down is pretty time consuming. Half the time it doesn't even really help with anything. Reverting to it isn't great. Having records and stuff, I think, is important, and kind of knowing where they were at one point in time. But writing down every single workout just isn't feasible. You'd just be going back and forth to the filing cabinet for something you kind of already know a roundabout number for. So anyway, with the velocity-based training, I'm into it. I've kind of always done it subconsciously. I am looking in the next couple of weeks to get a bar tracker and really start implementing this, because at some point, you've been doing the same thing for 3 or 4 years, bigger, stronger. You need to switch it up, and switching the reps up is great, switching up the timing. But to have a true velocity-based training quarter, a couple months with someone, I would love to see how that actually affects them going forward. And there's a few studies out there, but it's not a widely studied thing because everybody's so different. My explosion is different than someone else's explosion right now. So finding a baseline is kind of tricky. We'll just call it athleticism. Someone who's naturally athletic will already have that innate ability to explode from different shoulder angles, leg angles, hip angles, whatever. Especially if they done power cleans. Things like hang cleans, power cleans are just sheer explosion. So I'll do another podcast to kind of talk about that, recap all that kind of stuff, and see how it comes out. But thanks for checking it out, velocity-based training. Try it yourself. You don't need a timer. Just try lightening up the weight, say half your max. And on the way down, take your time, but work on exploding up and going through your transition as quick as you can. Almost like you're just trying as hard as you can to get it over with. You'll work up a sweat, your heart rate will be up, it'll be great. I think everybody would enjoy such a thing because you feel very accomplished at the end of it. And you're down there squatting anyway, so you may as well try to do it fast. But give that a shot, see how it goes. Thanks for checking out the podcast. If you haven't, please subscribe, rate, review in the Apple Pod Center, but we're on all the stuff, Google Play, Stitcher, you name it. Also check out the Instagram at Quick Sessions Podcast, the Twitter at Podcast Quick, YouTube Quick Session Podcast. Really the title of the podcast is everything. All right, thanks for checking it out, guys. Catch you next time.